Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full-on, your Fulham-centric football podcast. I'm your host, Ash Woolford. Joining me today for our Burnley preview are both the Jacks. AJ, how you doing, mate?
I'm good. Looking forward to putting old Parker boy in his place.
And Mozza, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right. Delighted to find out that Method Man joins the ranks of celebrity Fulham supporters, alongside the likes of Hugh Grant, Margot Robbie, Keith Chegwin, and Scorpio from Gladiators together at last. What a
Do
week!
not forget, do not forget Barry from EastEnders. Yeah, don't forget. Yeah. Also, Jim Jeffries is a massive Fulham fan, and that does me a world of good knowing that because I love him. So there we go. But obviously we're here to talk about Fulham Burnley coming up this weekend. It's a massive game for Burnley. It's probably one of the ones their fans are going to look at as being really one of their last chances to try and get themselves back in the fight to stay in the Premier League. It's the Scott Parker derby. We do know their fans are starting to finally see what we've been telling them about Scott Parker because it would appear that Burnley have returned tickets for this game. So much so that Fulham, who have priced tickets correctly for the first time in about 5 years, are selling tickets in that section between the away fans and the Putney end that we haven't done in about 4.5 years. So, well done for Fulham for actually pricing the game correctly because it proves that real fans do want to get to games when you don't price them out. And it's a real shame slash slightly funny to see Burnley fans finally turn on Scott Parker. There is some news obviously coming out of Fulham this week we need to talk about before we do start talking about the game. It looks like Fulham's transfer window started early for once. Ricardo Pepe signing coming in. Looks like it's going to be completed at some point over the next weekend. Obviously, he'll join the squad after the World Cup this summer, which is great. It looks like Fulham are finally getting there, starting there. There is a lot of obviously talk about what that means for Marco Silva. I personally am under the impression it means absolutely nothing towards Marco Silva. I think it's just Fulham trying to get some jobs done. If anything, it probably means more for Raul Jimenez than it does for Marco Silva. But these are things we'll discuss probably in the next couple of weeks or Monday after this game. We're here obviously to talk about Fulham Burnley. Let's get into that really. AJ, same question we always start with, mate. Looking at the squads and what we are likely to do going into this game on Saturday. What are you expecting? What are you hoping for? I know that's not always the same thing, but what do you think we will see going into this game on Saturday?
I'm expecting pretty much the exact same lineup, with maybe the exception of King from ESR if he's fit again. What I'd like to see, however, is the same lineup with Muniz finally starting a game, Sessegnon over Robinson, because I think we're going to have a lot more of the ball and it will give Sessegnon a chance to be very attacking, and Lukic over Berge. But I don't think we'll see those changes, to be honest.
Yeah, look, we were quite open and honest about what happened at Forest on Sunday. Just wasn't good enough, really. But it was a boring game of football. We are now going into our fourth game in a row against the teams that are fighting against this relegation. Obviously, we had a positive result against Spurs, but the last two games against West Ham and Forest have been really negative review shows that we've had to do after coming out of the game. So we're hoping that we can be positive going into this one. Obviously, it's Scott Parker and Marco Silva going against each other. We all know how Fulham fans feel about Scott Parker. We all know how I feel about Scott Parker. Mozza going into this one, Scott Parker's negative football, negative approach, and Marco's usually positive approach to football. It's going to be a real meeting of the minds going into this one. What are you hoping we're going to see, at least with the way we set up?
A real meeting of the minds. Um, Look, I don't really know. I was nearly gonna say I don't care. Rather, I think I don't care enough because similar to when we played West Ham, Burnley just being below them in a relegation battle, are they going to survive? Highly unlikely, but you will expect them to be up for it, as were West Ham when we recently played them. And with the Silva situation all up in the air, we don't know if he's staying. I'm aware that you guys are firmly of the belief that he's going. Whatever you believe, it's just there's. I feel like there's no sort of incentive, be it as a fan, as a Fulham player. Yes, we can say what we want about Scott Parker and give him stick. That is the only sort of entertaining value I can think of going into this game as a fan. But even then, I'm a bit tired, and it's a bit ironic, really, because the way that Parker played as well, in terms of the nature of it and the want, the passion, the style of football, the tactical choices, there are some parallels there with Silva. And I'm not someone who's already like Silva out, blah blah blah. But I just don't know if I care enough, really. And that's a shame. That is a massive shame. And I feel like a moron saying that. But I don't know what's in it for me. I don't feel emotionally invested in this game, and I should be. I really should be. Sorry to come in negative. I really had it in my head before we started recording. Right, try and be positive, but I suppose that is the existential crisis somewhat I'm dealing with as a Fulham fan. I don't know what to think, what to feel right now. What are the positives? I'll throw it back to you guys if you can help me.
Here's one, and this was going to be my next question anyway, right? To AJ, look, we're 5 points off of Europe. 5 points off of Europe. Realistically, probably 6 because of the way the way the English teams actually capitulated in the Champions League this week. We're probably less likely to get that extra place in Europe that we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. 6 points off of European place. We got it all there to play for. We do. We on paper we have it all there to play for. But what we've seen the last 3 weeks, you know, second half of that Spurs game, the West Ham game, even the Southampton game and the Forest game, we are not playing like we are attempting to get into the European spot, which is the concerning thing. It's there, it's in our grasp. But we've been saying that for the last 3 years in the middle of March, that Europe's in our grasp, and we've watched ourselves fall off a cliff. You know, we didn't ironically call Sunday's episode On the Beach FC Returns for a reason. It's not a prophecy, it's just we're seeing what we're seeing, and it's a pattern that we've seen coming in over the last couple of years. And it's more us addressing the concern that we do have Europe to play for. It should still be a realistic ambition for the squad to get into European spot this year.
Can I ask you, Ash? Sorry, I know you were going to go to AJ though, but just quick. Whether Silva's here or not, whether we get into Europe or not, no. Well, actually, say we do get into Europe. Do you think that's going to be good for us though, or I don't think. I think that will be detrimental, just based on what I'm seeing from the play at the moment. I'm not looking a gift horse in the mouth here, but do you really think that we do ourselves any favors? I don't know. Like,
What I would say is getting into Europe would not only make us more attractive for players we want to sign, it would make us more attractive for Marco Silva to maybe sign that contract and stay. Even if he doesn't sign that contract and stay, it makes us more attractive to any manager who might come in and replace him. So overall, as a team that we don't know this, we're just expecting us to have a lot of transition this summer. It could be exceptionally helpful in terms of bringing players in, bringing a manager in who might be able to take us another step in the league or whatever. Yes, we've seen with teams like Forest and Palace this year that it's gone against them in the league, and it could make next season a lot harder. And we know that from when we were in Europe with Roy Hodgson the second year, that being in Europe doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a wonderful season. It just means that you've got to do twice the amount of work. The worrying thing is we have a very small squad, so in order to play in Europe, we'd have to bolster that squad massively. Either that, or it's finally the push that the club are going to need. They're going to have to play 8 youth players every now and then on rotation in order to see things through, which could again be another positive. Depends on how you look at things. I look at that as a positive that some youth players are going to be forced to play. But it's a double-edged sword getting into Europe. But this is one of those things that you say it, and I say it now before I go to AJ about the actual question I was going to ask, is that they're bridges you cross when you get to them. Your ambition should always be to win and get further. Let's worry about the squad that might have to play Europe once we've actually made it into fucking Europe. Let's not worry about it now. Let's worry about that in the summer. Right now, the only ambition for the squad that's here right now should be to finish high up the table as it physically can be and to push for that European spot. That if we go now till now in the end of the season, push really hard and don't quite make Europe, none of us are going to be pissed off about it because we would have seen some entertainment. If we go into it like we did against Forest on Sunday and basically just sleepwalk the rest of the season, not only are we going to finish mid-table anyway, but we're going to be bored and we're going to be questioning what the hell's going on with Marco and everything around it, and we're going to be blaming that for why everything's fallen to pieces. The thing we have to remember, even if we push for Europe and don't quite make it, every position we finished above ourselves in the league right now is worth £2 million to the team. That £2 million, we finished 4 places above where we are now and still not quite make Europe. That's £8 million the club makes. That's £8 million that can go towards another player. That could go towards paying for the youth academy for a year. Dare I even say it? It could cut ticket prices by a massive load. Like it won't, but it could do. So it's one of those things that the ambition for the club should always be to finish as high as it can be, and I can't imagine it's not that. AJ, let me go to the question I was going to ask you, because we had Calvin Bassey come out this week and make a statement about Marco Silva's pushing them to finish high up the table. They're all ambitious. They all want to work hard to finish as high as they can be. We know that what we've seen in the last couple of weeks doesn't necessarily meet that. But what are your thoughts about, are they up for it? Can they get up for it? And should we be up for it, heading to trying to push to get into that European spot? Because if we fail because other teams are better than us, that's fine. But failing because we don't try is just, it's a bit cowardly for me.
Yeah, Bassey's statement when I initially heard it was, if this is them trying, I'd hate to see them slacking because it's been fucking abysmal. But with that in mind, if there is a genuine idea of pushing for Europe, I feel it's too little too late. You should never be the one chasing to get into the European spot. It's always better to be the one holding it. Brentford are a great example of that at the moment. They've got 8 games to basically hold their ground against Everton, Newcastle, Bournemouth, us, Brighton, and maybe a fringe chance of Sunderland. All of us trying to push up the table, trying to fight for something because there's this fringe opportunity. Also, bear in mind, there is a very slim chance that Chelsea finish in the top 4, Liverpool finish 5th and win the Champions League, and Aston Villa finish 6th and win the Europa League, meaning that 7th place gets Champions League football, which is unheard of and ridiculous. We could potentially see if that happens, if things stand in terms of the table's alignment, Brentford playing in the Champions League. And that would be the biggest insult to Fulham you could possibly imagine after the 3 seasons we've had of being able to even touch European football, let alone actually accomplishing it. So that aside, it's just, I want to believe we can, but nothing on the pitch has shown me so far that it's capable. We need to go out and put in a strong 5-0 performance against a Burnley that are clearly the worst team in the league at the moment. That is the only thing that's going to convince me otherwise that we're actually in this to win, that we can put teams to the sword and actually go and just obliterate teams for the fun of it. Because that's what you need to do at some level. You can't just live on your laurels and sit there and go, yeah, we've scored 1 goal, we'll now try and hold on to it for 90 minutes. It's not going to work.
Yeah, and I think it's a fair point. I think ultimately the real gauge on whether or not Fulham are basically just petering out now is going to be the result from this weekend. I think we're going to know what the true ambition of the football club is come after this Burnley game, because ultimately, if Marco sets Fulham up and picks a squad that how he can do, we should win this game easily. And that's no offense to Burnley. You're just not good enough. You know, your squad's just not good enough. Your manager's wank, so you don't deserve to be in the Premier League, and it is as simple as that, right? I called Scott Parker a football terrorist for a reason, and that's because he plays the most negative football, the most anti-football, the most disgusting brand of football you can watch. I hated watching him do it for Fulham. I hated watching him do it for Bournemouth. I hated watching him do it. Every single time I've seen him do it for any football club, and there's a reason why Fulham fans, but and Bournemouth fans were warning Burnley fans about what was coming their way when they made it to the Premier League, and it was exactly what they've seen over the last couple of months. Wolves have had a real upturn since they've changed manager, and Burnley have fundamentally, all right, they got more points than Wolves because where Wolves were when they changed their manager. Burnley are the worst team in the league by a long shot. And if we can't beat them on Saturday, forget European ambitions. We got to start questioning what the hell we're doing. And it is as simple as that. Look, lads, let's go into this how we always do. Let's finish how we always finish. Let's look at some players to watch. Let's look at a scoreline prediction from you both. AJ, can I start with you, mate? Can I get some players to watch and a scoreline prediction, please?
Yeah, for Fulham, I think it's going to be whoever starts in that number 10 role, be it King or Emile Smith Rowe, because both of them are going to see this as an opportunity to get on the score sheet, especially Josh King. I think him against not Marco Silva, against Scott Parker is what things are made of, what dreams are made of. As for Burnley, Jesus Christ. Which turd do I want to select to polish? Anthony, maybe. He's scored a couple of goals recently from recent memory. Yeah, him, I guess. Made me, at one point, I questioned whether or not they had got the ex-Manchester United Anthony online, but then I found out it was a different player, so that shows how much I know about the Burnley squad. I'm going to say him. And scoreline prediction, my heart says this is a 4-0 game. My head says that we walk out of this 1-1 absolutely seething. I'm going to commit to somewhere in the middle and say 3-1 Fulham.
Okay. Yeah, shout. Roger, how about yourself, mate? Players to watch and a scoreline prediction, please.
Yeah, players to watch. I've got to say, I think Lyle Buster and James Ward-Prowse. I'm just picking names out of a hat, but I think they'll be problematic in the midfield, which is what I'll come on to next for Fulham, and just generally us not getting shots away. Now, for us, it's tempting to say Marco Silva. I think we might have said him once or twice in the past, but I'm not going to be that facetious today. I'm actually going to say Oscar Bob, only because I think he's reminded me of when Kevin joined and started. Brilliant first several games, and now he's playing a bit toned down from what I've seen recently, and I don't know what that is. I don't want to coin a term, Fulham fatigue or whatever, or has he been told? We heard rumours before that Silva had told Kevin to stop showboating. I know Bob is a different player to Kevin, and Kevin's obviously injured at the moment, but I do feel like, yeah, he's sort of going through the motions a bit. Anyway, so yeah, he's my one to watch for us. And scoreline prediction, I am thinking a loss, and despite saying that, AJ, he just said 1-0. I think we're looking at that scoreline as well. I think we'll concede. I think we'll be lucky to get one past them. I've got a feeling Muniz might score for us, funnily enough, but I'm usually wrong, and I love being wrong when it suits us.
hope you're wrong too, Mozzie. You're really negative today.
I don't mean to be.
It's really
Sorry.
great. It's really great. You clearly weren't at the therapy session on Monday after the Nottingham Forest game, so we'll let you off. Look, for me, we have to look at this Burnley squad. Dubravka's a good goalkeeper, right? And he's probably been their best player over the last sort of 7-8 games. He's just really unlucky that he's got a really poor defence in front of him. Talking about that defence, it obviously does consist of Kyle Walker, who we all know how good he is. We all know his qualities. It's not quite as good as he has been. He's starting to lose it a bit now. But you cannot turn off from his quality that he does have, and he can turn it on. James Ward-Prowse is an easy name to mention because he's done fuck all, and he'll score a free kick on Saturday for sure because I've said that. It's as simple as that, isn't it? And then Anthony, he scored a couple of goals. He's a Championship player. He's not a Premier League player. So again, I'm probably pushing that to go against us on Saturday. For Fulham, I think whoever plays up front is definitely going to have a good game because we need to be scoring goals in this game. Burnley aren't the strongest defensively, even though Scott Parker inevitably will have them eight men behind the ball no matter what. It's going to be one of those games that if we can score early and relieve a little bit of pressure, we could easily score 4 or 5 goals in this game. But the longer it's 0-0, or the longer that we haven't scored, the harder it will be for us to score because they'll gain confidence from it and they'll push and they'll do typically what Scott Parker teams do when they're defending games that, as the game goes along, they get way more confident doing it. So if we can score early, we can win 4-0 and 5-0 easy. If Burnley can hold on to half-time 0-0, we'll be lucky to maybe win 1-0. Saying that, defensively, we've been really poor the last couple of weeks. I know we haven't conceded loads of goals, but we were lucky against Forest not to concede because of a really tight offside call. West Ham's goal, yes, we completely handed it to them because Leno had a brain fart, but we just didn't look great defensively at all, and that's the concern for me. So keeping the clean sheet is going to be difficult. So because of that, I'm going to say 4-1 because I'm confident we can score goals in this game if we can get a goal early. So I'm going to say 4-1 Fulham, but that's mainly because I can't even envision a world where I can let Scott Parker win a game of football against us. So, there's that. Lads, thanks very much for joining me on this one. Thanks everyone who has joined us over the last couple of weeks. Join the chat. Let us know in the comment section your scoreline prediction for this game. Please do keep sharing and liking. Everyone who has been sharing us, our subscriber count has gone up a little bit over the last couple of weeks. We do appreciate everyone pushing and everyone commenting. We've had more comments coming in on the show than we ever have over the last couple of weeks too, which has been great. So do get involved. Do let us know what you think. And hopefully, if you're going to the game on Saturday, Fulham can get a result that will actually mean that we can come into a match review on Monday and be really positive. And we can talk about potentially pushing for Europe and not what we're doing in the summer and where we're going to watch the World Cup, because that'll probably be the case. Lads, as I say, thanks very much for joining me. Have a good weekend. Hopefully Fulham can win. Nothing really more to say other than come on you Whites.